History as we know it is supposed to be continuous, a meticulously threaded tapestry of events, civilizations rising and falling, each leaving its indelible mark for future generations to study and understand. We trace lines from ancient Mesopotamia to the Roman Empire, from the philosophical breakthroughs of Greece to the sprawling dynasties of China. But what if I told you there's a colossal gap in that tapestry? A magnificent civilization that thrived for nearly 1,000 years, rivaling the grandeur of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, only to inexplicably vanish, leaving behind an absence that speaks volumes about the fragility of human achievement? Think about everything you learned in history class. Chances are, this particular behemoth, this forgotten titan of antiquity, barely got a passing mention, if it was mentioned at all. We're talking about a lost world, one of humanity's earliest and most enigmatic urban societies, a place of extraordinary sophistication and baffling mystery, the Indus Valley Civilization. It's like trying to understand human history with an entire chapter ripped out, a chapter that once chronicled millions of lives, sprawling cities, and an advanced way of living that, in many respects, exceeded some of its better-known contemporaries. Here's what makes this so profoundly intriguing, so utterly captivating for archaeologists and historians alike. While we have the deciphered hieroglyphs of Egypt, the cuneiform tablets of Sumer, offering direct insights into their beliefs, their rulers, their daily struggles, the Indus Valley Civilization remains largely silent, its language an undeciphered puzzle. It's a land of echoes and shadows, where the wind whispers tales through the ruins of meticulously planned cities, but the voices of its people are, for now, forever stilled. The allure of ancient vanished civilizations is powerful, drawing us in with promises of hidden knowledge and forgotten wisdom. But the Indus Valley Civilization, often called the Harappan Civilization, after one of its first discovered sites, holds a special place in this pantheon of the lost. It's not just that it disappeared, it's how it disappeared, and the unique characteristics it displayed during its zenith that sets it apart. It was one of the three cradles of civilization in the Old World, alongside the Nile Valley and Mesopotamia, yet it feels somehow more alien, more inscrutable. Its historical impact, while undeniable in shaping the future of the Indian subcontinent, is shrouded in a profound mystery, a grand vanishing act on the stage of ancient history. What if a civilization could achieve unparalleled urban planning, sophisticated sanitation, and widespread trade, all without apparent kings, armies, or monumental temples? This is not just a historical curiosity. It's a fundamental challenge to our preconceived notions of what makes a civilization. It forces us to question whether our models for societal development are too narrow, too focused on the well-documented empires of the Near East. The very lack of those familiar markers, the grand palaces, the colossal statues, the detailed victory stelae, serves only to deepen the enigma. It suggests a different path, a divergent evolution of human society that thrived on principles we are only just beginning to grasp. And here's what's really interesting. While Egypt was building pyramids to eternal pharaohs, and Mesopotamian city-states were locked in cycles of conquest and tribute, the Indus Valley seems to have forged a different kind of order, one that prioritized communal welfare and functional urbanism over ostentation and warfare. The sheer scale and uniformity of this civilization, stretching over an area larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, encompassing thousands of sites, all adhering to a surprisingly consistent urban model, demands our attention. It invites us to ponder not just what happened to it, but what it was in the first place, and what lessons it might still hold for us today. The mystery of its ultimate demise hangs heavy in the air, a persistent question mark on the timeline of human progress. We don't know the full story, but what we do know, what we can piece together from the archaeological fragments, paints a picture of astonishing ingenuity and a profound sense of community. A civilization that dared to be different and then, without warning, simply wasn't. Now, let's talk about the stage upon which this extraordinary drama unfolded, the very cradle that nurtured the rise of the Indus Valley civilization. Imagine a vast, fertile floodplain, fed by the mighty Indus River and its tributaries, stretching across what is now modern-day Pakistan and parts of Afghanistan and India. This wasn't just any river. The Indus, much like the Nile, was the lifeblood of an entire region, annually depositing rich silt that transformed arid landscapes into agricultural paradises. The unique environment of this river system was absolutely crucial, a fundamental ingredient in the recipe for civilization. Early settlements began to dot the landscape as far back as 7000 BCE, long before the great cities emerged, slowly evolving from humble farming villages into more complex, organized communities. These were the roots, the nascent stirrings of what would become one of the most remarkable urban cultures the world has ever seen. The river provided not just water for irrigation, but also a highway for transportation, linking communities and facilitating trade, laying the groundwork for a truly unified cultural sphere. The earliest phases, often referred to as the pre-Harappan and early Harappan periods, saw people mastering agriculture, particularly the cultivation of wheat and barley, and domesticating animals like cattle, sheep, and goats. This agricultural surplus was the essential prerequisite for population growth and the specialization of labor, the pillars upon which complex societies are built. Think about that for a moment. Sustained agricultural output allowed a portion of the population to move beyond subsistence farming, dedicating their time to crafts, administration, and eventually the planning and construction of cities. The archaeological evidence shows a gradual but steady progression. Small villages began to coalesce, houses became more structured, and rudimentary fortifications appeared. We see the beginnings of shared cultural elements, like certain types of pottery and symbols, suggesting a growing network of interaction and cultural exchange across the region. It's a testament to human adaptability and ingenuity, how these early communities learned to harness the power of their environment, transforming it from a raw landscape into a productive engine for societal advancement. Then, around 2600 BCE, something truly astonishing happened. A dramatic leap occurred, transforming these burgeoning communities into full-fledged urban centers. This marked the beginning of the mature Harappan period, the golden age of the Indus Valley civilization, which peaked between approximately 2500 and 1900 BCE. This was a period of unprecedented urban growth, sophistication, and cultural cohesion. We're talking about cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which were not just large settlements, but meticulously planned metropolises, testaments to an extraordinary level of civic organization. These cities were far beyond anything their predecessors had built, demonstrating a mastery of engineering and urban design that would not be replicated in many parts of the world for millennia. The role of the river in agriculture and sustenance cannot be overstated. It was the artery of this civilization, providing the bounty that allowed millions to thrive. Its annual floods, while sometimes destructive, also brought renewed fertility, a natural cycle that the people learned to live with and exploit. The very existence of this civilization, its ability to support such a large and dense population, was intrinsically tied to the hydrological dynamics of the Indus and its network of rivers. The sheer scale of development, the simultaneous emergence of multiple large, complex urban centers, speaks to a shared vision, a common understanding of how society should be structured, a unique cultural paradigm that flourished across a vast geographical expanse. And it brings us to one of the most astonishing aspects of the Indus Valley civilization, their unparalleled skill as architects of utopia, their obsession with urban planning and engineering. This is not hyperbole. The cities of the Indus Valley represent a pinnacle of ancient urban design. While contemporary civilizations were often characterized by organic growth around temples or palaces, Indus cities displayed a deliberate, almost obsessive degree of pre-planning. Think about the grid plans of modern cities, the standardized blocks, the organized infrastructure. Now, imagine that existing over 4,500 years ago. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, the two largest and best-studied sites, reveal an astounding level of organization. We're talking about streets laid out in precise grid patterns, intersecting at right angles, dividing the city into well-defined residential blocks. This wasn't haphazard construction, it was meticulously engineered. And here's what's really interesting. One of the hallmarks of Indus architecture was the use of standardized baked bricks. These bricks were remarkably uniform in size, a ratio of 1 to 2 to 4 for thickness, width, and length, respectively, not just within a single city, but across the entire civilization. This incredible consistency across thousands of miles and centuries of construction suggests a central authority, or, at the very least, a widely accepted standard of engineering that was rigorously adhered to. It's like having a universal building code millennia before such concepts became commonplace. What does this tell us? It speaks volumes about their organizational capabilities, their understanding of mathematics and measurement, and perhaps even a shared cultural identity that transcended individual settlements. It implies a degree of societal cohesion and cooperation that is truly remarkable for the ancient world. But the real marvel, the feature that truly sets Indus cities apart, is their advanced drainage and sanitation systems. This is not just a minor detail. It's a game changer. Each house in Mohenjo-Daro and many in Harappa had its own well and a dedicated bathing area. Wastewater from these areas flowed through carefully constructed brick drains, often covered, leading to larger communal drains beneath the main streets, which would then carry the waste out of the city. We're talking about covered sewers, sophisticated waste management, and an understanding of public health that was centuries, if not millennia, ahead of its time. Compare this to the open sewers and haphazard waste disposal common in many European cities well into the 18th century, and the achievements of the Indus people become even more staggering. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro is another iconic example of this engineering prowess. It's a large, meticulously constructed public water tank, nearly 40 feet long and 8 feet deep, with 2 wide staircases leading down to the water. It was lined with precisely fitted bricks and sealed with natural tar to prevent leakage, a testament to their civil engineering skills. While its exact purpose is debated, perhaps ritualistic bathing, perhaps a communal pool, its very existence highlights an extraordinary investment in public infrastructure and a capacity for large-scale construction that was truly revolutionary. The city layouts also offer fascinating insights into their social organization. Most major Indus cities, including Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, were divided into 2 distinct parts: a raised citadel or acropolis to the west, and a larger, lower town to the east. The citadel, often fortified, likely contained important public buildings, perhaps administrative offices, granaries, or ritualistic structures like the Great Bath. The lower town, much larger in area, housed the majority of the population, with its grid of streets and residential buildings. This division, while not as overtly hierarchical as the palaces and temples of Egypt or Mesopotamia, still suggests a degree of social stratification and organized governance. However, here's what's truly distinctive and, frankly, perplexing: the striking absence of grand monuments, opulent royal tombs, or massive temples dedicated to specific deities. Unlike their contemporaries who poured vast resources into monumental architecture celebrating rulers or gods, the Indus people seem to have invested primarily in practical communal infrastructure. This lack of overt displays of power and wealth, this apparent emphasis on functional urbanism, has led many scholars to speculate about a radically different social structure. It suggests a civilization perhaps more egalitarian, or at least one whose elite expressed their authority not through monumentalism, but through efficient administration and public works. We see no evidence of palaces for kings, no battle spoils recorded on colossal stelae, no burial grounds filled with grave goods for an aristocratic class. This is not just a small difference, it's a fundamental divergence from the established patterns of ancient civilizations. It forces us to ask, what if a complex, thriving urban society could exist without the conventional trappings of centralized, authoritarian power? And this brings us to a closer examination of their society and culture, a look at what made the Indus people tick, beyond their remarkable urban planning. This was a peaceful, prosperous people, or at least that's what the archaeological record strongly suggests. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the prosperity of the Indus Valley civilization comes from the extensive trade networks they maintained. The Indus people were expert mariners and merchants, engaging in extensive trade with distant lands, most notably with Mesopotamia and parts of Persia. We find Indus seals, distinctive artifacts used to mark ownership or authenticate goods, in Mesopotamian cities, indicating a robust flow of goods and ideas. Conversely, objects from Mesopotamia and other regions have been found in Indus sites. They traded in precious stones like lapis lazuli and turquoise, metals like copper and tin for making bronze, timber, and agricultural produce. This wasn't merely local exchange. It was long-distance, sophisticated international trade, demonstrating a high level of economic organization and logistical capability. Think about the implications of such a vast trade network. It means a stable society, a safe environment for goods to travel, and a recognized currency or system of exchange. Their craftsmanship was also extraordinary. The Indus people excelled in a variety of crafts. Their pottery was distinctive, often painted with geometric and animal motifs. They were skilled metallurgists, working with copper, bronze, lead, and tin to produce tools, weapons, and ornaments. We've found beautifully crafted jewelry, including beads made from precious stones like carnelian and steatite, sometimes even microbeads so tiny they must have required advanced tools or exceptional dexterity to create. But perhaps the most iconic artifacts are the seals and figurines. Thousands of steatite seals have been discovered, typically small, square, or rectangular, engraved with precise images of animals, unicorns, humped bulls, elephants, tigers, and, critically, short inscriptions in the undeciphered Indus script. These seals likely served various purposes, as identification, property markers, or amulets. The figurines, often terracotta, depict humans and animals, including the famous dancing girl bronze statue from Mohenjo-Daro, a masterpiece of ancient art, and numerous mother goddess figurines, suggesting the importance of fertility cults. But here's the thing. The great enigma that overshadows all our understanding of their daily lives, their beliefs, their governance, the undeciphered Indus script. It's like trying to understand an entire book by only looking at the cover art. Thousands of these short inscriptions have been found, mostly on seals, but also on pottery, copper tablets, and small utilitarian objects. They typically consist of a few symbols, rarely exceeding 20. Despite decades of intense research and numerous attempts, no one has yet definitively deciphered the script. This lack of a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual inscription that could unlock its meaning, is a monumental roadblock. Its mystery has profound implications. Until we can read their words, we are left to infer their history, their social structures, their religion, and their worldview purely from material remains. What if they had written epics, laws, scientific treatises? We simply don't know, and the silence is deafening. Perhaps one of the most striking characteristics, especially when compared to contemporary civilizations, is the apparent absence of obvious warfare or military structures. We find no grand battle scenes depicted, no proliferation of weapons, no fortified cities designed for sustained siege warfare. While some defensive walls exist, they seem more designed for flood control or to delineate urban areas rather than for military defense against external aggressors. This has led many scholars to suggest that the Indus Valley civilization was a largely peaceful society, one that maintained order through consensus, trade, and cultural cohesion rather than military might. This is a profound concept, challenging the common narrative that civilization inherently requires strong, centralized, and often militaristic rule. Could they have managed such a vast and complex society with minimal overt display of force? It's a tantalizing idea. Regarding religious beliefs, without a deciphered script, we are again left to interpret symbols and artifacts. The numerous mother goddess figurines suggest a cult of fertility and veneration of feminine divine power, a common theme in many ancient agricultural societies. Another intriguing artifact is the Pashupati seal, depicting a horned figure seated in a yogic posture surrounded by animals. Some scholars have interpreted this as a prototype of the Hindu god Shiva, especially in his aspect as Pashupati. This suggests a potential continuity of religious ideas from the Indus Valley civilization into later Indian thought, a fascinating possibility of an unbroken spiritual lineage spanning millennia. The presence of ritual bathing, as evidenced by the Great Bath, also points to the importance of purification and religious ceremonies. But again, these are interpretations, educated guesses in the absence of explicit texts. The Indus Valley civilization presents a quiet grandeur, a silent majesty that speaks volumes even in its inscrutability. And then, as suddenly and mysteriously as it appeared, the great civilization began to decline. This brings us to the perplexing question, the ultimate mystery, the great decline and eventual vanishing of the Indus Valley civilization. Around 1900 BCE, after centuries of remarkable prosperity and stability, the lights began to go out across the vast Indus plain. Cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, once bustling centers of trade and innovation, showed signs of decay, abandonment, and eventual ruin. This widespread disappearance, affecting thousands of sites over a vast geographical area, is one of the most enigmatic events in ancient history. It wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a gradual unraveling, a slow fading into oblivion. We don't know exactly why, but a number of theories have been proposed, each with its own supporting evidence and arguments. One of the most widely accepted theories points to climatic change. The Indus Valley civilization was intricately linked to the stability of the monsoon patterns and the river systems they sustained. Imagine a world where the life-giving rains, the predictable cycles of flooding and receding waters suddenly become unreliable. Studies of ancient climate patterns suggest a significant shift in monsoon patterns around 2000 to 1900 BCE. This could have led to prolonged droughts, a reduction in the flow of the Indus and its tributaries, and the drying up of crucial feeder rivers like the Ghaggar Hakra, which may have been a major river system during the heyday of the civilization. Such environmental stress would have severely impacted agriculture, the very foundation of their prosperity. Without sufficient water for crops, populations would have dwindled, food supplies would have become scarce, and the complex urban infrastructure could no longer be sustained. What if the very source of their prosperity became the agent of their decline? It's a powerful and compelling argument, backed by paleoclimate data. Related to this, or perhaps a consequence of prolonged climatic stress, is the theory of environmental degradation. Even if the immediate cause was climate change, human activities might have exacerbated the situation. Intensive agriculture over centuries could have led to soil exhaustion, demanding ever more land to feed growing populations. Deforestation to fuel brick kilns could have contributed to ecological imbalance, leading to soil erosion and further climate shifts. Salinization, the buildup of salt in the soil due to irrigation in arid environments, could have rendered once fertile lands unproductive. It's a scenario where a complex interplay of natural and human factors pushed the civilization beyond its breaking point, a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between human development and environmental sustainability. Geological events also present a plausible set of factors. The Indus region is tectonically active, prone to earthquakes and shifts in river courses. Major seismic activity could have caused widespread destruction to cities, damaged irrigation systems, and altered the very topography of the landscape. Changes in river patterns, perhaps due to tectonic uplift or subsidence, could have diverted water away from once fertile areas, or, conversely, caused devastating floods that engulfed entire settlements. Mohenjo-Daro, for instance, shows evidence of repeated flooding, with thick layers of silt separating different occupation levels. While a single flood wouldn't necessarily doom an entire civilization, a series of catastrophic hydrological events, especially when combined with other stresses, could have been a contributing factor to the widespread abandonment and eventual collapse. And then there's a theory that, for a long time, dominated the narrative, but has since been largely debunked or, at the very least, drastically reinterpreted: the Aryan invasion theory. This hypothesis, popularized in the 19th and 20th centuries, suggested that the Indus Valley civilization was destroyed by invading Indo-Aryan tribes from Central Asia. Evidence for this theory included skeletal remains showing signs of violence in the later levels of Mohenjo-Daro and textual references in ancient Hindu scriptures depicting the Aryans as conquerors. However, modern archaeological research has largely refuted this claim as the primary cause of collapse. The violent deaths found in Mohenjo-Daro are now attributed to sporadic violence, not evidence of a systematic invasion and massacre. Furthermore, there's no widespread archaeological evidence of invasion or large-scale warfare across the numerous Indus sites. The Aryans likely migrated into the subcontinent over a long period, integrating with local populations rather than conducting a swift destructive conquest. The theory is now viewed as an oversimplification, often rooted in colonial-era interpretations that sought to explain societal change through external forces rather than internal dynamics or environmental factors. It's a powerful example of how historical narratives can evolve and be challenged by new evidence and methodologies. So, what became of the enigmatic Indus people? While the urban centers declined, the people themselves didn't simply vanish into thin air. This brings us to the echoes in the dust, the lingering legacy and the enduring mystery of a civilization that never truly disappeared, but rather transformed. The collapse of the major cities and the centralized system didn't mean the end of all existence. What we see instead is a process of de-urbanization and regional shifts. As the great cities weakened, people likely migrated eastward and southward, seeking more stable environments and better agricultural lands. This led to a reemergence of smaller, often less complex rural settlements in new areas. It was a period of cultural shifts, of adaptation and fragmentation, rather than outright extinction. The most fascinating aspect of their legacy lies in the subtle yet profound influences on later South Asian cultures. Think about those mother goddess figurines and the Pashupati seal, which some scholars interpret as proto-Shiva. These aren't just artifacts, they represent potential continuity of religious ideas and symbolism. The veneration of certain animals, like the bull, and elements of fertility cults can be traced from Indus times into later Hindu traditions. The concept of ritual purity and bathing, so evident in the Great Bath, resonates with later Hindu practices. Even the meditative postures depicted on some seals bear a striking resemblance to early forms of yoga. This isn't a direct, unbroken line of transmission, but rather a strong suggestion of a substratum, an underlying base of cultural and possibly religious concepts that were absorbed and evolved within the subsequent historical layers of the subcontinent. It's like a deep, underlying current that continues to shape the surface of a river. The ongoing challenges of archaeological interpretation without a deciphered script are immense. It's frustratingly like trying to understand an entire conversation when you can only see the gestures and expressions but not hear the words. Every artifact, every architectural detail, every burial site is a piece of a puzzle. But without the key to unlock their written thoughts, our understanding remains incomplete, speculative, and open to multiple interpretations. This is not to diminish the incredible work done by archaeologists. Rather, it highlights the unique difficulty and the persistent allure of this particular lost civilization. The silence of the script adds another layer of intrigue, forever beckoning us to unravel its secrets. But perhaps the most valuable takeaways from the rise and fall of the Indus Valley civilization are the lessons it offers for modern society, particularly concerning sustainability and urban planning. Here was a civilization that prioritized public health, efficient infrastructure, and a seemingly egalitarian social order for nearly 1,000 years. Their sophisticated urban planning, with its grid streets, advanced drainage, and standardized brick sizes, speaks to a vision of cities that were livable, functional, and designed for the well-being of their inhabitants. In an age grappling with rapid urbanization, climate change, and resource depletion, the story of the Indus Valley civilization offers a compelling historical precedent. It reminds us that even the most advanced societies are vulnerable to environmental shifts, and that sustainable practices are not just a modern concern, but an ancient imperative. What if we learned to build cities that were intrinsically linked to their environment, that respected natural cycles, and that prioritized communal benefit over individual monumentalism? The Indus people showed us one way it could be done. The persistent allure of this vanished civilization is not just about exotic ruins or undeciphered scripts. It's about what it challenges us to consider about human potential, resilience, and the diverse paths that societies can take. It's a silent testament to a different kind of progress, a civilization that valued efficiency, perhaps peace, and communal well-being. It asks us to question our assumptions about power, hierarchy, and the very definition of a successful civilization. The Indus Valley civilization serves as a powerful reminder that history is not a linear march, but a complex, often surprising narrative with chapters yet to be fully understood. The dust of millennia may cover their cities, but the echoes of their ingenious lives continue to resound, inviting us to delve deeper into the origins of our urban world and prompting us to consider the fragile balance between human innovation and the enduring power of nature. We might not have all the answers, but the questions it raises are perhaps even more profound, urging us to continue our quest to understand these ancient people who built so much, and then, slowly, silently, faded away. If you found this journey back to a truly lost world as fascinating as I do, perhaps you'd consider leaving a like or subscribing for more explorations into the untold stories of our past. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect of the Indus Valley civilization do you find most intriguing? The enduring enigma of the Indus Valley civilization compels us to consider not just their accomplishments, but the subtle, almost imperceptible ways they shaped the course of human development. While their legacy might not boast monumental structures like the pyramids of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, their influence is arguably just as profound, filtering through millennia in the very fabric of urban living. They were pioneers in a truer sense, designing cities that optimized for human comfort and public health long before these concepts became cornerstones of modern urban planning. Think of Mohenjo-Daro's meticulous street grids, its sophisticated drainage systems. These weren't just conveniences. They were revolutionary acts of engineering and social organization. What's truly striking is the apparent lack of overt signs of state-sponsored violence or warfare. Unlike their contemporaries, whose ruins are often littered with fortifications, weapons caches, and narratives of conquest, the Indus cities present a picture of relative tranquility. This absence isn't merely a curious detail. It challenges one of the most ingrained assumptions about early state formation, that a centralized, coercive authority, often backed by military might, is a prerequisite for large-scale societal organization. The Indus people seem to have achieved remarkable levels of coordination and resource management without resorting to the typical trappings of imperial power. This begs the question, how did they do it? Was it a powerful, unseen priestly class wielding spiritual influence, a collective governance model that distributed power more equitably, or perhaps a system of shared cultural values and civic responsibility that obviated the need for heavy-handed enforcement? The very idea of a peaceful empire or even a peaceful civilization seems almost paradoxical in our current understanding of history. Yet the Indus evidence nudges us towards just such a possibility. Their extensive trade networks, stretching as far as Mesopotamia and the Arabian Peninsula, were likely facilitated by this very perceived stability and reliability, making them ideal partners in commerce. Goods exchanged weren't just raw materials, they included finely crafted jewelry, weights, and seals, suggesting a highly developed artisan class and a standardized system of measurement that would have been essential for fair exchange across vast distances. This intricate economic web, built on trust and shared standards, might have been a stronger unifier than any army. Consider the role of their intricate script, still undeciphered. While we can't read its meaning, its ubiquitous presence on seals and other artifacts suggests a standardized system of record-keeping, essential for managing trade, tribute, or perhaps even religious texts. The very act of writing, regardless of content, implies a certain level of cultural sophistication and a desire to formalize transactions and communications. The challenge of decoding it continues to be one of archaeology's greatest puzzles, holding the potential to unlock entirely new perspectives on their social structures, belief systems, and daily lives. Imagine, for a moment, if we could read their laws, their poetry, their histories. It would be like opening a window directly into their collective mind, offering insights far beyond what mute bricks and pottery can tell us. The decline of the Indus Valley civilization is equally thought-provoking, not because of dramatic invasion narratives, but because of its subtlety. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but a gradual unraveling, a slow shift away from urban centers, a diminution in the quality of craftsmanship, a reduction in trade. This extended decline offers a powerful lesson in environmental sensitivity. While theories abound, shifting monsoon patterns, tectonic activity altering river courses, gradual salinization of arable land, the common thread is an inability to adapt to changing ecological conditions. Their genius lay in harnessing the power of the Indus River system, but this symbiosis also made them exceptionally vulnerable to its fluctuations. They built their world around the river's bounty, and when that bounty diminished or became unpredictable, their intricate system began to fray. This slow ecological demise contrasts sharply with many other ancient collapses driven by conquest or internal strife. It presents a more sobering narrative, that even without enemies at the gates, a civilization can fall if its foundational relationship with the environment is irrevocably damaged. It forces us to confront the idea that progress, even monumental progress in urban planning and social organization, is always contingent on a sustainable interaction with the natural world. This isn't ancient history. It's a stark mirror reflecting contemporary concerns about climate change, resource depletion, and the fragility of our own interconnected global systems. The Indus story, in this regard, transcends mere archaeological interest and becomes a cautionary tale for the present and future. Moreover, the gradual nature of their decline might suggest a resilience that is often overlooked. Rather than a total collapse, it might be more accurate to describe a transformation, a decentralization, a return to more localized agrarian ways of life. People didn't vanish, they simply adapted, perhaps abandoning large urban centers for smaller, self-sufficient villages. This pattern of adaptation and societal reorganization, rather than outright extinction, is a testament to human adaptability, even in the face of profound environmental challenges. The lost civilization might not have been entirely lost, but rather reconfigured, its urban grandeur replaced by a more dispersed, less archaeologically visible way of life. Traces of Indus culture, like certain motifs in pottery or lingering craft techniques, persisted into later periods in the region, hinting at a heritage that wasn't entirely erased, but merely transitioned. The emphasis on communal identity over singular rulers, as inferred from the lack of monumental royal tombs or distinctive palaces, is another fascinating aspect. In an era where pharaohs, kings, and emperors dominated their societies and sought to immortalize themselves through colossal monuments, the Indus people seem to have prioritized the collective. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro, a massive public water facility, might have been a communal ritual space, a purification site, or simply a central gathering point for the entire city. Its grandeur wasn't for an individual, but for all, serving a collective spiritual or social purpose. This focus on shared infrastructure and public amenities, from their extensive granaries to their elaborate waterworks, speaks volumes about their values. This communal ethos might even extend to their spiritual beliefs. While the specific details are still debated, the ubiquitous mother goddess figurines and the Pashupati seal, depicting a figure possibly proto-Shiva, suggest a nature-centric or fertility cult, deeply connected to the land and its life-giving forces. If their religion revolved around these collective concerns, it would further reinforce the idea of a society oriented towards well-being and reproduction rather than conquest and individual glory. The symbols and artifacts they left behind indicate a rich inner life, a spiritual framework that likely governed their ethical and moral conduct, further promoting societal cohesion. The bead factories discovered in several Indus sites, producing intricately crafted carnelian, steatite, and agate beads, reveal not just a sophisticated manufacturing process, but also a highly skilled artisan class and an economy geared towards luxury and exchange. These beads, often found in Mesopotamian burials, were highly prized, serving as valuable trade commodities and perhaps even a form of currency. This specialized production suggests a complex division of labor, with a significant portion of the population dedicated to non-agricultural pursuits, a hallmark of advanced urbanization. It also indicates an appreciation for aesthetics and craftsmanship that goes beyond mere utility. The remarkable standardization observed across many Indus cities, from brick sizes to layout patterns, the system of weights and measures, points towards an organized, overarching authority or a strong shared cultural paradigm. It's difficult to imagine such consistency without some form of central planning or deeply ingrained societal norms that transcended local variations. This level of uniformity across a vast geographical area is unparalleled in the ancient world for a society that seemingly lacked a singular, visible imperial power. It suggests a powerful, invisible hand of tradition, regulation, or a communal understanding that guided their construction and daily life. The discovery of potential docking facilities at Lothal, far inland today, but once connected to the Arabian Sea by a navigable river, further highlights their maritime prowess and extensive trade networks. Lothal was not just a city, it was an ancient port, a bustling hub where goods from the interior met those from distant lands. The ingenuity required to manage tidal flows, construct robust docks, and navigate prehistoric rivers speaks to a deep understanding of hydrodynamics and engineering that rivals anything seen in other contemporary cultures. This mastery of their environment, both fluvial and oceanic, was another cornerstone of their economic success. Their use of standardized weights, a sophisticated decimal system or close to it, further underscores their advanced mathematical and administrative capabilities. Whether for trade or taxation, these weights, meticulously carved from chert, were remarkably consistent across the vast expanse of the civilization. This precision would have fostered trust in economic transactions and facilitated efficient resource management, a quiet testament to their administrative efficiency without the need for grand pronouncements or visible power structures. This level of organizational sophistication makes their disappearance even more intriguing. The enduring mystery of the water buffalo and rhinoceros motifs on seals, animals not commonly associated with contemporary Mesopotamian art, further solidifies the distinctiveness of Indus culture. These animals likely held significant symbolic or religious meaning for the Indus people, reflecting their unique ecological context and possibly their spiritual landscape. Unlocking the meaning of these symbols, alongside their script, would provide invaluable clues to their worldview and belief systems, moving beyond purely material culture to the deeper layers of identity and meaning. Their precise agricultural practices, evidenced by fossilized seeds and traces of irrigation channels, reveal a mastery of cultivating a diverse range of crops, including wheat, barley, and various pulses. This agricultural base, combined with animal husbandry, provided the sustenance for their large urban populations. The surplus generated was essential for supporting specialized labor, trade, and the administrative apparatus, however subtle it might have been. Their efficient management of water for irrigation, a lifeblood in a riverine civilization, again points to sophisticated knowledge of hydrology and communal coordination. The absence of monumental art, glorifying individuals or rulers, commonly found in Egypt or Mesopotamia, is a defining characteristic. Instead, Indus art leans towards intricate seals, functional pottery, and a modest number of human figurines. This cultural choice profoundly impacts our understanding of their social hierarchy. It suggests a society where identity and contribution were perhaps more tied to community roles and collective achievements rather than individual power displays. The famous priest-king statue, while a singular exquisite piece, doesn't stand amidst legions of similar grand monuments dedicated to individuals, further reinforcing this perspective. It's an icon, yes, but not necessarily a representation of a vast centralized royalty. The continued preservation of Indus-style cultural elements in later Indian civilizations, such as certain ritual practices, symbolic motifs, or even forms of urban planning, suggests that the civilization didn't simply vanish without a trace. Its echoes resonated, contributing to the rich tapestry of subsequent Indian cultures. The impact of the Indus Valley civilization extends far beyond its physical remains, influencing the very substratum of South Asian civilization in ways we are only beginning to fully appreciate. The idea of a sacred river, of ritual bathing, of certain types of pottery or jewelry. These threads might lead us back to the Indus people, demonstrating a legacy that is more enduring than initially thought. The Indus Valley civilization stands as a powerful counter-narrative to our often Eurocentric understanding of ancient history, which tends to prioritize empires built on conquest and monumental display. It shows us a different pathway, one of sophisticated urbanism, extensive trade, apparent peace, and environmental harmony, all achieved without the overt signs of coercion or centralized monarchical power. This makes it not just a lost civilization, but a lost model of societal organization, one that challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what constitutes progress or success in human history. The very fact that they thrived for nearly 1,000 years, a span comparable to the Roman Empire, despite these unique characteristics, is a testament to the efficacy of their system, whatever its precise nature. Their long endurance, followed by a gradual and peaceful fading, provides an alternative to the typically violent rise and fall narratives of so many other ancient powers. It compels us to consider the quiet robustness of a society built on, perhaps, consensus, efficiency, and a deep, respectful relationship with its environment. As we grapple with the complexities of our own globalized, interconnected world, the lessons from the Indus Valley civilization become increasingly pertinent. Their story is a powerful reminder that stability and flourishing do not necessarily require massive armies or grand palaces, but can emerge from meticulous planning, communal cooperation, and a profound respect for the delicate balance of the natural world. Their silent cities speak volumes across the millennia, urging us to listen to the ancient whispers of a civilization that charted a different course, a path whose wisdom we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. It calls upon us to not merely unearth their artifacts, but to uncover the underlying principles of their society, principles that may yet hold keys to building more resilient, equitable, and sustainable communities in our own future. The journey into the Indus world is not just an archaeological expedition. It's an intellectual and philosophical one, inviting us to broaden our understanding of human potential and the myriad ways in which societies can choose to organize themselves. It asks us to look beyond the dominant narratives of power and conflict and consider the possibility of a civilization that prioritizes different values, values that might even offer viable alternatives for addressing some of the most pressing challenges of our modern age. The dusty plains where their cities once stood are not just burial grounds of the past. They are fertile soil for cultivating new ideas about the future of human society. The questions they leave us with, about governance without kings, about trade without war, about sustainability as a core principle, are not easy to answer, but they are profoundly important. They force us to confront our biases and to reevaluate what we consider foundational to human civilization. The Indus people built a world that was in many ways ahead of its time, a world that we are still trying to fully comprehend and perhaps learn from. The silent testament of their bricks and drains, their seals and weights, whispers a story of a truly alternative past, a story that continues to challenge and inspire. The search for their secrets is therefore not just about satisfying historical curiosity, but about finding echoes of a wisdom that could still guide us today. They remind us that the story of humanity is far richer and more diverse than we often imagine, and that some of the most profound lessons can come from those who left no grand monuments to their names, but rather built a quiet, efficient, and enduring civilization. Their ingenuity wasn't etched in towering pyramids or colossal statues, but in the meticulous planning of their cities, the precision of their weights and measures, and the remarkable sanitation systems that even medieval European cities would envy centuries later. This understated brilliance, this focus on communal well-being over individual aggrandizement, truly sets them apart. It makes you wonder, if the measure of a civilization isn't its ability to conquer, but its capacity to cooperate, where do the Indus people truly stand? The answer, I believe, lies in the lingering sense of awe we feel when we consider their longevity without apparent central authority or overt military might. Think about it. Millenniums before the concept of city planning became a recognized discipline, these urban architects were laying out grids with astronomical precision, integrating public wells, and designing sophisticated drainage systems that channeled waste away from living quarters. This wasn't merely practical, It represented a deep understanding of public health and communal hygiene, a value system that prioritized the collective good. Their standardized brick sizes, found across vast distances, speak of an organizational capacity that belies any notion of chaos or disunity. It's almost as if they operated on a common playbook, a shared understanding of how to build and maintain a thriving urban environment without the need for a single overarching monarchical decree. The mystery of their writing system, the Indus script, is another fascinating puzzle piece. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, which have yielded their linguistic secrets, the Indus script remains undeciphered. This isn't for lack of trying. Countless scholars have dedicated their lives to unlocking its meaning. But its enigmatic nature further contributes to the aura of the Indus civilization. What stories do these symbols tell? Were they administrative records, religious texts, or something entirely different? The absence of monumental eulogies or narrative accounts, so prevalent in other ancient cultures, makes their silence all the more profound. It forces us to interpret their lives through their material culture, through the objects they left behind, and through the very fabric of their cities. Their exquisite craftsmanship, from finely carved steatite seals depicting enigmatic animal figures and human-like deities, to intricate shell ornaments and glazed faience beads, demonstrates not just skill, but a sophisticated aesthetic sensibility. The uniformity in their weights and measures, spanning a region larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, suggests a highly organized economic system, one rooted in fair trade and consistent exchange. This wasn't a collection of isolated villages. It was a vast interconnected network, thriving on commerce and cultural exchange, driven perhaps by mutual benefit rather than territorial conquest. Their interaction with other civilizations, documented through Indus seals found as far away as Mesopotamia, confirms their status as a major player in the ancient world's global economy. And then there's the question of their decline. While several theories exist, climate change, shifting river courses, perhaps even internal strife, no single catastrophic event definitively explains the widespread collapse. This gradual fading, rather than a violent end, adds another layer to their mystique. It hints at an inherent adaptability that eventually met its limits, or perhaps a societal structure that, while resilient, was not immune to profound environmental shifts. This aspect of their story holds particular relevance for our own age as we grapple with similar ecological challenges. What lessons could their eventual decline, whatever its true cause, offer us about societal resilience and adaptation in the face of changing environments? The enduring legacy of the Indus Valley civilization isn't just about what they built, but about the questions they continue to pose. It's about challenging our preconceived notions of what constitutes civilization. It's about recognizing that power doesn't always wear a crown, and that progress isn't solely measured in military might or ostentatious displays of wealth. They whispered to us across millennia, not with bombast, but with the quiet dignity of their achievements, urging us to consider a path less traveled, a vision of humanity that prioritizes harmony, communal well-being, and sustainable coexistence. Their story is a powerful counter-narrative, a testament to an alternative evolutionary trajectory of human society, one that deserves not just our study, but our deepest contemplation. They are a profound reminder that history is not linear, nor is it singular. It is a tapestry woven with countless threads, some brilliant and bold, others subtle and understated, but all contributing to the rich, complex picture of who we are and what we might yet become. The search for their secrets, therefore, becomes a journey of self-discovery, challenging us to envision new possibilities for our collective future.